was digging up bodies, but what he did with the body parts is extraordinary.
Edward Theodore Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield, whose crimes shocked the nation and inspired numerous books, films, and other media adaptations, including the inspiration for characters like Norman Bates in Psycho and Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs, who committed some horrifying acts, was an American murderer and body snatcher who gained notoriety in the 1950s. Gein was born on August 27th in 1906 in La Crosse County, who is the second of two boys of George Philip Gein, with Henry been the elder brother of Gein and Augusta Wilhelmina Gein. He lived a reclusive life on a farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin. Augusta, who was fervently religious and nominally Lutheran, frequently preached to her sons about the innate immorality of the world, the evil of drinking, and her belief that all women were naturally promiscuous and instruments of the devil. She reserved time every afternoon to read to them from the Bible, usually selecting verses from the Old Testament and the Book of Revelation concerning death, murder, and divine retribution. Gein idolized and became obsessed with her. Augusta detested her husband because of his long history of alcoholism and inability to maintain a stable job. His past employment history, which included sales of insurance, tanning, and carpentry, demonstrated his incapacity to stay in one place for very long. Gein's father, seeking seclusion, briefly ran a small grocery store in La Crosse, but he soon gave up and moved the family to a secluded 155-acre farm in Plainfield. They were seeking solace from the outside world that this action constituted a retreat from society. Augusta, taking advantage of their remote location, fervently protected her sons from outside influences, guaranteeing their total reliance on her. Augusta kept her firm hold on her sons, molding their outlook and worldview by managing their surroundings and minimizing their interaction with outsiders. Gein's world only left the farm to go to school. His days were spent alone, doing farm chores, which led to peculiarities like impromptu laughter and social awkwardness. His attempts at socializing were thwarted by Augusta's strictness, which made him feel even more alone. In spite of these difficulties, Gein took comfort in his studies and even managed to read quite well given the turmoil in his childhood. In order to support themselves after their father passed away in 1940, Ed Gein and his brother Henry worked odd jobs. They were well respected in their neighborhood, but when Henry decided to move out, worries about Ed's attachment to their controlling mother, Augusta, surfaced. In 1944, tragedy struck when Ed was removing vegetation and a fire started, resulting in Henry's disappearance. His body was later discovered, with no signs of burns or wounds, indicating heart failure. This incident set up the unsettling sequence of events that would eventually solidify Ed's reputation as an American celebrity by transforming his apparently normal life into a darker one. Gein's crimes were discovered in 1957 when authorities investigated the disappearance of a local woman, Bernice Worden. During their search of Gein's property, they uncovered a disturbing scene. Gein had been robbing graves and had also murdered several women. Inside his house, they found a horrifying collection of human remains and macabre artifacts, including human skin masks, a belt made of female nipples, and furniture upholstered with human skin. 58-year-old Bernice Worden, the owner of a hardware store in Plainfield, vanished early on November 16, 1957. At around 9:30 a.m., the hardware store truck was observed leaving the back of the structure. It was deer hunting season, some locals thought, as the hardware store saw very few customers throughout the day. By 5 p.m., Worden's son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Worden, discovered bloodstains on the floor and an open cash register. Suspicion against Ed Gein grew as a result of the circumstances surrounding Bernice Worden's disappearance. It raised eyebrows that he was in her store the night before she disappeared, and that he planned to come back for antifreeze the following morning. Worden vanished from view, and attention turned to Gein, who was eventually taken into custody at a local supermarket. The Waushara County Sheriff's Department conducted a thorough search of Gein's farm as a result of this crucial moment, which ultimately exposed the terrifying truth that was hiding within his remote property. During the search, Worden's decapitated body was found in a shed, hung upside down with her torso dressed out like a deer. She had been shot with a .22 caliber rifle, and the mutilations occurred post-mortem, Inside Gein's house, authorities made chilling discoveries. The search of Ed Gein's property yielded horrifying discoveries that offered a glimpse into his macabre obsessions. Inside his house, authorities found human bones and fragments scattered throughout. Additionally, they uncovered a wastebasket crafted entirely from human skin, highlighting Gein's disturbing penchant for using human remains in everyday objects. Chairs upholstered with human skin further emphasized the extent of his grotesque handiwork, while skulls displayed on bedposts added to the chilling atmosphere of the scene. A treasure trove of terrifying artifacts, each more unsettling than the last, were discovered during the search of Ed Gein's property. Some of the gruesome finds included female skulls with their tops chopped off, suggesting Gein's dark intentions and the depth of his depravity. Gein's macabre fascination with the human body was evident in everything he created, from bowls made of human skulls to a corset made from a skinned female torso. The most horrifying discoveries were masks made from female head skin, which Gein used to adopt various personas utilizing human remains. The skull and face mask belonging to Mary Hogan, as well as the head and heart of Bernice Worden, acted as menacing symbols of the lives that Gein had stolen and the extent of his depravity. Gein's obsession with female anatomy and his willingness to desecrate human remains for his sinister ends were further highlighted by the discovery of a shoebox filled with vulvae, a child's dress, and other horrifying objects. A horrifying image of a seriously disturbed person whose acts would cause a long-lasting harm to the community was painted by these bizarre creations, which included a doorbell fashioned from a female nipple and a lampshade covered in human skin. Beyond these horrifying killings of Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden, there is a lot more to the story of Ed Gein. Authorities had suspicions about him in more than one additional unresolved cases, notably during the period between Worden's murder and the death of his mother. His psychiatrists concluded that Gein's violence was mostly directed towards women who resembled his mother, even though he was presented with a list of missing persons cases and the discovery of Hogan's remains. Gein appeared to pass lie detector tests. The disappearances of Evelyn Grace Hartley in 1953 and Georgia Jean Weckler in 1947 were two unsolved cases. Witnesses reported seeing a black sedan in the area when Weckler vanished close to her farmhouse in Fort Atkinson. This was an unsettling coincidence, since Gein owned a car that looked similar. Hartley disappeared while babysitting in La Crosse, too, and her disappearance was accompanied by peculiar events at the Rasmussen residence. Suspicions persisted, despite Gein's denials and his passing lie detector tests, but there was insufficient proof to connect him directly to their disappearances. Added to that, there is a case involving the attempted kidnapping of Judy Rodenkahl and the unexplained disappearances of Victor Harold Travis and James Walsh. Despite Gein's objections, Travis and Burgess vanished after going hunting close to his farm, and Walsh vanished after helping Gein with his wife's chores. Despite being looked into in relation to these cases, Gein was not directly linked to the disappearances based on any concrete evidence. Suspicions were heightened when Irene Keating vanished in 1956, but as with the others, Gein was not proven guilty. These unsolved cases cloud Gein's already infamous legacy, leaving communities plagued by uncertainty and questions unanswered. Following his arrest, Ed Gein faced arraignment on November 21, 1957, in Waushara County Court, where he entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity to the charge of first-degree murder. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, he was deemed mentally incompetent for trial. Consequently, he was remanded to the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, later known as the Dodge Correctional Institution, in Waupun. This maximum security facility housed individuals deemed unfit for conventional incarceration due to mental illness. Eventually, Gein was transferred to the Mendota State Hospital in Madison, a psychiatric facility specializing in the treatment of mental disorders. These developments underscored the complexities of Gein's mental state and the challenges of reconciling justice with his psychological condition. In 1968, medical professionals deemed Ed Gein mentally competent to engage in his defense. The trial commenced on November 7th of that year and concluded within a week. During the proceedings, a psychiatrist testified that Gein had relayed uncertainty regarding the nature of Worden's killing, suggesting it might have been accidental rather than intentional. According to Gein's account, while handling a gun in Worden's store, it discharged unexpectedly, resulting in her death. Gein claimed he had not aimed the rifle at Worden and had no recollection of subsequent events that morning. This testimony provided insight into Gein's state of mind at the time of the crime and contributed to the complexity of his trial. In a unique legal arrangement, Ed Gein's trial proceeded without a jury at the request of the defense, with Judge Robert H. Gulmar presiding over the proceedings. After a brief trial period, Gulmar rendered a guilty verdict against Gein on November 14th. However, the legal saga did not conclude there. A subsequent trial focused on Gein's mental state, with testimony provided by medical experts representing both the prosecution and the defense. Following thorough examination and deliberation, Judge Gulmar ultimately ruled that Gein was not guilty by reason of insanity. Consequently, Gein was ordered to be committed to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane, where he would spend the remainder of his life under psychiatric care. This decision reflected the recognition of Gein's profound mental instability and the belief that he posed a danger to himself and others. By committing him to a mental institution, the court aimed to ensure public safety while also acknowledging the complexities of Gein's psychological condition. Ed Gein's life came to an end on July 26, 1984, when he passed away at the age of 77, after spending decades confined to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. Gein's death marked the closing chapter of one of America's most chilling criminal sagas. Despite the passage of time, his name remains synonymous with horror and depravity, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the human psyche. Ed Gein continues to fascinate and repulse, his legacy serving as a cautionary tale about the fragility of the human mind and the depths of human depravity. While his crimes shocked the nation and left scars on the communities he terrorized, the resolution of his story offers a semblance of closure for those affected by his heinous acts. Yet, the memory of Ed Gein and the horrors he perpetrated will endure as a haunting reminder of the capacity for evil within us all. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, or email at crimesabroad@outlook.com.